Workers don't die in this video. They don't fall to their deaths, get burned, or caught in equipment. Why not? Because this program isn't about safety belts, conveyor belts, or equipment of any kind. In fact, it's not about doing anything. It's about knowing. It's about knowing right now what hazardous materials are present in your workplace. Knowing how you can protect yourself from them. Knowing what to do in the event of an accident. And knowing how to get more information quickly if you need it. You have the right to know the hazards of any and all of the chemicals you work with, because you have the right to be alive and well at the end of each and every day. There is a program in effect that's designed to make sure this happens. It's called the Workplace Hazardous Materials Information System, commonly known as WHMIS. WHMIS is all about 4 important questions that you not only have the right to ask, but in fact, the responsibility to ask. What is the hazard of the product? How do I protect myself? What do I do in case of an accident? What do I do if I need more information? The questions are the key. If you can remember to ask them, WHMIS will make sure you get answers. The Workplace Hazardous Material Information System is a flow of information with you, the worker, at the receiving end. The system begins where the hazardous materials are produced. WHMIS requires that the supplier of any hazardous material provide information about it to the purchaser. If that purchaser is your employer, WHMIS demands that they make that information readily available to you. That's it. Sounds simple enough, but it's made complex at first by the many kinds and classes of chemicals, and the many symbols used to identify them. The manufacturer must classify the chemical according to the type of hazard it presents and display the symbol clearly. You need to recognize these symbols as quickly and easily as you recognize your own children. In this class of hazardous material, you'll find mainly compressed gases. The danger is an explosion of the container. Flammable materials obviously pose the danger of catching fire or exploding if ignited. Oxidizers are a less obvious threat. They are materials that can cause a fire. They may react with any flammable materials they come in contact with. Some fertilizers and herbicides are oxidizers. They may react violently with some flammable materials, such as gasoline. Poison. This is only one of 3 toxic categories. Materials labeled with this familiar symbol are immediately and seriously harmful. Overexposure to these chemicals can make you ill within a few minutes, or may even kill you. These are materials whose toxic effects take longer to show up. It may take years before you realize you've been poisoned. This symbol also represents substances that could cause temporary eye or skin irritation. This symbol identifies corrosive materials, which may eat through metal and cause severe burns to the eyes or skin. There are 2 other symbols in the WHMIS system: biohazardous and dangerously reactive material. They are also dangerous, but less likely to be seen in most agricultural settings. Knowing how to identify the hazard is the first step to becoming an informed worker. But to really get any benefit from WHMIS, you need to understand how the system works, how it creates and distributes hazardous material information. That's next. To get the most from WHMIS, you need to understand how the system works, how it creates and distributes hazardous material information, starting with the supplier. Some hazardous products have, for years, been required to affix a warning label. Pesticides, many consumer products, and drugs have labels that may include hazard symbols, first aid instructions, ingredients, and directions for use, though not always for safe use. But for hazardous products where no label was previously required, WHMIS now demands it. When a supplier produces or imports a product for sale in Canada, information must be provided that alerts workers to the hazards and all procedures necessary to safely handle the product. The first thing a supplier must do is prepare a label. A typical WHMIS label has health and safety information enclosed within its distinctive border. It provides hazard symbols, warnings, precautions for safe use, and first aid information. But WHMIS demands something else from the supplier, an MSDS, a Material Safety Data Sheet. The MSDS goes a lot farther than the label, especially with regard to preventing accidents and what to do in emergencies. The data sheet has more than 50 pieces of information, including precautions and first aid treatments. The supplier must provide an MSDS for all hazardous materials with WHMIS labels. MSDS sheets may also be available for pesticides, consumer products, and other hazardous materials. The data sheet is normally the source of all the information you need to answer the 4 questions that ensure the safe handling of hazardous materials. The Workplace Hazardous Material Information System starts with the supplier of hazardous materials and ends with you, the informed worker. But your employer is best positioned to make WHMIS work. Your employer is responsible for checking that supplier labels have been applied to all hazardous goods received at the workplace. Products must not be handled or used until they are properly labeled. If no labels exist, for any hazardous material, the employer must make up a workplace label. These labels must be attached to all the containers into which the product is transferred. The workplace label provides 3 types of information: the product name, safe handling information, and a reference to the MSDS. Workplace labels can be in whatever language best serves the employees. But it's up to the employer to make sure labels are always readable. If the substance is under the control of a trained employee who will use all of it during the same shift, a simple identification label will do the job. Never use food or drink containers for transferring or storing chemicals. Just as the employer checks all incoming materials for labels, so should he check for the MSDS. The most important thing is that data sheets be on hand, close to work areas, and available during each work shift. Once your employer has made sure both labels and data sheets are in place, an education program must be set up to show how WHMIS works. And this video is part of that process. At meetings like the one you're attending right now, you can expect to learn about the hazards of chemicals you work with. You can expect to learn how to get help or information in the workplace when you need it. And most important, you can expect to be instructed in how to apply that information to protect your health and safety. That means training in the safe use and handling of each product you work with. And the training isn't complete without practice. WHMIS starts with the supplier of hazardous materials and then puts much of the responsibility for the carrying out of the program on the employer. But it all ends with you, the worker, the one who's most at risk in the workplace. Much effort has gone into installing the best information in your workplace, but it remains your job to make the system work for you. It's nobody's job but yours to know the answers to the 4 questions that could one day save yourself from a potentially hazardous situation. What is the hazard of the product? How do I protect myself? What do I do in case of an emergency? If I need more information or need to refresh my memory, what do I do? When WHMIS works, it's because everybody has made it work. The result is a workplace with informed workers. The result is thousands of men and women working at minimal risk, at jobs where accidents are greatly reduced, and where operating costs come down. And last, but in no way least, the result is workers who know they'll be going home safe at the end of each workday.